Most of us watch YouTube videos to relax for a while, learn a new skill, or pass some time during the day. While some of the content uploaded to YouTube may seem innocent at first, it sometimes paints a different picture years later due to events that have happened around the world, such as missing persons that have been found, natural disasters that occurred, or in the worst of cases, when someone loses their life. Number 10. During the early 1990s, Chileno Sanchez was a renowned corrido musician living in Mexico. That type of music entails the telling of a story that's either based on facts from history, politics, or heroes from a bygone era, and Chileno was said to be the king of the genre. But before he achieved fame, he had a difficult time growing up. He was born in 1960 in the farming community of El Gallabo, a poor area where many people struggled to get by. But he would face an even bigger tragedy when he turned 15. In 1975, his sister went to a dance where a well-known and influential man named Chapo Perez was in attendance. It was here that the man attacked and assaulted her, and Chileno knew he couldn't let Chapo get away with this scot-free. 2 years after the attack, he learned that Chapo would be at yet another dance, and he made a plan to avenge his sister. He found the man as expected, produced a firearm, and ended his life. He was wanted by the police from that point on and had no choice but to flee, and he made his way to California. Once there, he struggled financially and turned to petty crime to support himself. This landed him in jail, but it also marked the beginning of his music career, as he had a lot of time to compose songs. Some of his fellow inmates requested that he write songs about their crimes, and he was happy to oblige. He finished his stint in prison, after which he decided to record the songs that he had written, and he sold these cassettes from the trunk of his car. Before long, he'd made a name for himself, and his music would even be played back home in Mexico. People would share the cassettes that he'd made with each other, and this resulted in an underground bootlegging scene that only catapulted Chileno to further fame. Soon, he started performing at venues that were sold out. Most of the attendees were Mexican immigrants who could relate to his songs, but on many occasions, fights would break out, and attendees would discharge firearms. What Chileno failed to take into account, though, was that some of his songs contained lyrics about criminals who didn't want any publicity, and they didn't want their exploits known by the rest of the world. Nevertheless, his success allowed him to start his own record label, and he started concentrating on his music full-time. He hired a band that would serve as his regular accompanists, and he was offered a record deal by Cintas Aquario Studio in Long Beach. He started releasing albums, and they were well received, and he could finally leave his days of struggling for money behind him. There's no doubt, though, that he made a few enemies, possibly unwittingly, and this would prove to be his undoing. In a clip that's still available on YouTube, Chileno can be seen performing at the Plaza Los Arcos nightclub in Coachella to a crowd of about 400 people. The crowd was having a great time, and the show seemed to be going off without a hitch. But about halfway through his set, something strange happened. In the clip, we can see that he'd been handed a piece of paper, and as the band starts playing the next song, he hardly seems to notice as he's intently reading the note that had been handed to him by a young man from the crowd. He would later state that he initially thought it was a song request, but as he read it, he realized someone was threatening his life. The change in his expression is obvious as he realizes what's happening, but he's able to concentrate on the music and he starts singing the next song. It would later come to light that the note instructed him to stop performing or his life would be ended. He finished the set and left the venue, but then he was approached by a group of men posing as police officers who abducted him. The next morning, Chileno was found deceased by 2 farmers on the outskirts of Culiacan, and it was clear that he'd been attacked by cartel members. Unsurprisingly, the culprits were never identified, and the case was never solved. But the incident ensured that Chileno would forever be remembered by those who appreciated his music. Number 9. This video, which was uploaded to YouTube on the 23rd of April, 2019, shows a group of people having fun in and around a swimming pool in Luzon, an island in the Philippines, earlier that same month. Kids can be seen laughing with their friends, diving into the water and relaxing poolside. and it seems like the perfect way to spend an afternoon. But unbeknownst to everyone in that clip, disaster is about to strike. Less than 2 minutes into the video, which has no audio, the atmosphere around the pool suddenly changes when waves begin to appear in the water and the ground starts to tremble. Everyone in the water starts to swim to the edge to get out, but this is easier said than done, as the swells in the pool have gotten much bigger. As the camera pans upward, we can see trees swaying from side to side, while parents and older children rush to the pool to get the smaller children to safety. By now, water is spilling over the sides of the pools that can be seen, but everybody makes it out, and they can do nothing but wait for the tremor to subside. When the tremor finally stops, families are seen getting dressed and gathering their possessions as they start to head home to survey the damage that's been caused to their houses. It would later be reported that this was a 6.1 magnitude earthquake that struck the island, and that central Luzon was the worst affected. While the quake didn't seem like much of a threat around the pool, it had much stronger effects in other areas, and many people were left destitute. Over 3,000 people had to evacuate their neighborhoods to take shelter in evacuation centers, while close to 5,000 people were waiting to be housed in temporary shelters. 156 houses were damaged beyond repair, and more than 1,000 were partially damaged and in need of repair before they could be inhabited again. A few days later, it would be announced that 18 people had lost their lives during the quake, and 282 others had to be treated for different injuries. Number 8. This YouTube video, which was uploaded 5 years ago by a channel called SCR Nathan, is yet another example of how a relaxing afternoon can turn into a nightmare in the blink of an eye. It shows a group of people, possibly tourists, getting onto a boat in Wakari, Hawaii on the 9th of December 2019. And the weather seems perfect for such an excursion, as there's only a few clouds in the sky. According to the credits, the video was recorded by someone known as Alessandro Kaufman, who joins the rest of the passengers on a boat labeled White Island Tours. Before long, we can see the island in question coming into view. But as the boat continues to approach it, passengers start to feel uneasy when they spot a plume of white smoke rising into the air above the landmass. The boat eventually reached shallow waters around White Island, and passengers, wearing hard hats, can be seen transferring the dinghies that will transport them to the island. The next piece of footage is recorded on the island, and we can see smoke rising from some areas, making it clear that there's some volcanic activity occurring. But no one seems too concerned for the time being. The last footage recorded on the island shows a few structures that collapsed long ago, and the group returning to the dinghies, not knowing that they made it off the island just in time. What follows is a terrifying series of events that leaves everyone aboard the boat in a state of panic. We can now see that the volcano has erupted as a massive plume of gray and white smoke rises from the island. Those aboard can be heard speaking in elevated tones, while one man is heard yelling, "Go, go, go," instructing the skipper to get out of the area as quickly as possible. Passengers who are leaning over the side of the boat to take photos are instructed to get inside, as the skipper was likely worried about falling rocks and other debris that would have been thrown into the air by the eruption. The next clip shows the last plume of smoke has gotten exponentially bigger, and passengers can be heard saying that they're terrified. They haven't traveled far from the island by this point, and the danger from falling debris is still very real, as one woman is heard asking, "Are we going to be okay?" and her friend replies, "I don't know." Later in the video, the group notices a helicopter from a different tour on the island, and they're dismayed to realize that it's been completely destroyed. Eventually, calm returns to the boat as the eruption settles down and smoke starts to clear. No one on board was injured, and they all made it back to land without any issues. But 22 of the 47 people who were still on the island when the eruption occurred lost their lives. Some of those who lost their lives were passengers from a cruise ship that had docked near the island, and they were simply unable to make it back to the vessel in time. Number 7. In this video, the Canadian YouTuber Jason Matthew Ethier, better known to his subscribers as J Station, is spending time with a female friend. He explains that it's his last day in Texas and that they're on their way to find a new shirt for him, as he's been wearing the same one for 2 days. They then visit a restaurant in the mall, enjoy some ice cream in his car, and then the pair share a tearful goodbye. While driving alone, though, Jason states that he feels God and the world are against him because he's unable to find happiness. But the truth is that Jay Station wasn't the most popular YouTube personality. He'd been described by others as being creepy, toxic, and manipulative, and the type of content that he uploaded, which involved him trespassing on other people's property, had caused a lot of controversy. In one video, he explained that he'd finally quit his regular job, since his YouTube channel was doing well financially, but just days later he was arrested and charged after being caught trespassing at the Bay retail store in Ottawa. On that occasion, he was fined and released. In 2020, he was dating Alexia Marano, a YouTuber who's known for her gaming and reaction videos on several platforms. But his own channel took a huge hit when he went too far in an effort to gain even more subscribers to add to the 5 million that he already had. In a video that's since been deleted from the platform, Jason can be seen crying as he informs his followers that Alexia was no longer alive, since she'd been hit by an intoxicated driver the previous evening. He then traveled to the site of the tragedy where a friend filmed him mourning at a memorial that had been set up in Alexia's honor by the side of the road. He then states that Alexia's dream was to gain 1 million subscribers to her channel, and that she nearly attained that goal when she tragically lost her life. The video gained about 800,000 views, but many people felt that something about it was strange. One user contacted the Toronto police, who informed him they had no record of anyone named Alexia Marano losing her life in an accident. Later that same week, he recorded another video in which he attempted to contact Alexia using a Ouija board, but that video and the footage in which he reveals the tragedy were quickly deleted when it came to light that Alexia was still very much alive and had not been in an accident. He quickly made another video in which he claimed that Alexia was in on the prank and that it was done in an effort to gain more subscribers. He was eventually forced to admit his deceit after Alexia's parents saw the first video and threatened to contact a news outlet. In the aftermath, Alexia chose to end their relationship, and soon after, it was announced that he was arrested after Alexia accused him of assault. Soon, he was arrested and charged with assault and assault with a weapon, to the delight of thousands of commenters who condemned the fake video. But the result of those charges is unknown. Number 6. From the moment that the investigation into the disappearance of 34-year-old Justin Henry started, the police believed he was a victim of foul play, and his family was left devastated while they waited for the outcome of the case. The authorities stated they had no proof that Justin was still alive, and so they had no other option than to treat his disappearance as suspicious. They also found the circumstances surrounding his case very unusual and out of character, but they held out hope, along with Justin's family, that they were mistaken. All that was known at the time was that Henry was visiting his partner in Brixton, London, England, on the 15th of October 2023, and that after he left, he visited a McDonald's drive-thru at around 9:50 p.m., as is seen on CCTV footage that's been uploaded to YouTube. The McDonald's is located on London Road in Croydon, and later that same night, his silver Mercedes E-Class was seen being driven to Crystal Palace, but the police were certain that someone else was behind the wheel. Then, on the 6th of November, investigators found a red Nissan Almera on Dale Road in Purley, and when it was searched the next day, Justin was found deceased in the trunk. It would then be established that Henry drove his car to Wadden New Road, and after the vehicle remained there for 2 hours, it was driven to Crystal Palace. When Justin's family was shown images from CCTV cameras showing his car being driven, they were unable to see the driver's face, but remained adamant that the man operating the vehicle was not Justin. They then reached out to the public, asking for anyone with information about what happened that night to come forward, so that the culprit could be tracked down and arrested. They also described Justin as a happy person who wouldn't hurt a fly, making the attack all the more abhorrent. The CCTV footage from the McDonald's drive-thru was also made available to the public in hopes that it would jog someone's memory, but it remains unknown whether anyone came forward with relevant information. Then, on the 24th of October, Just more than a week after Justin disappeared, the authorities announced that they'd made an arrest and that 30-year-old Louis Benjamin was in custody. He'd tried to flee and get rid of his phone when approached by officers, but was unable to do so. This was quickly followed by the arrest of 29-year-old Jamal Ali Richards, likely because Benjamin supplied his name to the police. They stood trial at the Woolwich Crown Court on the 11th of September, and both were found guilty of ending Justin's life. Number 5. The case involving 45-year-old cabinet maker Ryan Borgward is one that's left a lot of people angry and confused due to the strange decisions that he made in August of 2012, and he'll have to live with those decisions for the rest of his life. The case has now been resolved, but a timeline of the strange events that occurred during the investigation has been published, and it makes for some disturbing reading. At the time of his disappearance in August of 2024, Ryan was living in Wisconsin with his wife and children, and he made plans to go on a fishing trip. He set out to Green Lake, but never returned, and his family feared that he may have had an accident while out on the water in his kayak. A search of the lake was subsequently organized, and it lasted for a full 50 days. The kayak was found, as was Ryan's phone and ID, and it was assumed he ended up in the water somehow and was unable to make it back to shore before drowning. But the resulting investigation revealed a few troubling details that would eventually lead to this very strange case being solved. It was discovered that he'd applied for a second passport, and that after he received it, he kept it a secret from his wife and children. On the day that he set out for the lake, he removed the hard drive from his laptop and replaced it with a brand new one. This made it impossible to track his online activity, bank transactions, and emails. His browser history had been erased on all of his devices, and he'd contacted several banks to get information about transferring money to banks in foreign countries. Next, he bought several airline gift cards, which he likely used himself, and it started to seem as though he'd been planning to leave the country. 6 months before setting out on his fishing trip, he took out a large life insurance policy to the tune of $375,000, and he named his wife as the sole beneficiary. Investigators started to speculate that Ryan was in financial trouble, and that he was committing some type of fraud, or that he'd gotten into trouble somehow and erased all his digital data before making his getaway. It would then come to light that Ryan had capsized his kayak on purpose before getting onto a bus to Canada. But his destination was the country of Georgia, where he met up with a woman from Ukraine named Katya, whom he'd been secretly dating online. Investigators managed to contact him via email, and Ryan then created a video to prove that he was still alive. He spoke directly to the camera and showed a small section of his new apartment, adding that he was safe and secure. Investigators convinced him to return to Wisconsin, and once he did, he was arrested. He would admit that he was in financial trouble since he was in $205,000 of debt, and he felt like a failure. He was charged with obstruction of justice and sentenced to 89 days in jail. Once that was done, he returned to Katya, stating that the cost of living was far cheaper in Georgia, and it's believed that he's now started that new life that he was looking for. Number 4. The artist Richard Prince, who's known for his paintings and photography, was born in the Panama Canal Zone in 1949, but he spent most of his childhood in Massachusetts before he relocated to New York in 1977. Once there, he landed a position with Time Life, a multimedia company that provided direct marketing tools for books, videos, and music. While there, Richard started becoming interested in advertising, and he started using pop culture images that he found in magazines as inspiration for some of his work. He held his first solo exhibition in 1980, and before long he was being hailed as the father of appropriation art. But not everyone was as enthralled by his work as some critics were. While some called his work appropriation, others saw it as plagiarism and laziness, such as one series that he released called Cowboys, which included photographs of Marlboro adverts that he found in magazines. In 2001, he bought a farmhouse close to his home, and he named it Second House. He then converted it into an installation venue where his books, paintings, sculptures, and photographs were put on display. In 2013, the YouTube channel Vice posted a video of Richard in which he gave a tour of his home in the country. He also showed some of the paintings that he'd been working on and spoke of his life out of the country that afforded him some privacy when he needed it. But the following year would see Richard criticized after he put on an exhibition of his work called New Portraits at the Gagosian Gallery in New York. It was made up of images that he downloaded from his Instagram feed. These images were uploaded to the platform by other photographers, and rumors started to swirl that he was committing copyright infringement. But the rumors eventually died down until 2014, when it came to light that some of those pieces were being sold for as much as $100,000 each. Two of the photographs, whose images had been used, Donald Graham and Eric McNatt, filed a lawsuit against Richard. They pointed out that these images clearly belonged to them, and not the appropriation artist who merely downloaded them and sold them without permission. He was eventually ordered to compensate the actual artists who'd created these images $650,000 in damages and $250,000 in legal costs. Number 3. Most of us are familiar with popular TV shows like This Is Your Life, which was last broadcast in 2003, with a one-off episode that was broadcast in 2007 being the exception. The premise of the show was to invite celebrities onto the stage, after which they relived certain moments in their careers and met up with people who helped shape them into the people that they'd become. The episodes were often very emotional for actors, singers, artists, and the like, as they recounted memories from their pasts and reconnected with friends and family members that they hadn't seen for decades in some cases. The first episode aired in 1952, with Laura Stone Marr, the mother of the actor Milburn Stone, being the first ever guest. After its first airing, the show quickly gained popularity, and it was watched by millions of people around the world. But one particular episode struck viewers as especially interesting, thanks to the events that preceded it. It featured the actress Frances Farmer, who hailed from Seattle. She showed acting talent from a young age, and while attending the University of Washington, she started studying drama. She soon started appearing in plays, and it was clear she was embarking on a successful career as an actress. To attain the funds needed to move to Hollywood, she started selling subscriptions to a leftist magazine called The Voice of Action, and she won a round-trip ticket to New York and Moscow, Russia. Her mother claimed that Frances had been corrupted by radicals and that Frances faced a lot of backlash from civil leaders. The Young Men's Christian Association of Seattle and other prominent associations, with her mother being her biggest detractor. She denied claims that she was a communist, stating that she merely wanted to travel to Russia to study theater and that she wanted to settle in New York. Once she made it there, she started looking for acting work and landed a contract with Paramount Pictures. She started making a name for herself in the industry after appearing in 4 movies, and at least one director named her as the best actress he'd ever worked with. But she soon grew tired of Hollywood, describing it as a nut house, and she became difficult to work with. She decided to turn to theater once more, and she garnered great praise for her performances. When a love affair ended badly, though, she started drinking heavily and was fired by the theater company that she had joined. When the next 2 plays that she appeared in failed miserably, she became emotionally exhausted and decided to return to Hollywood. She appeared in 2 more small films, but no longer had the passion for acting that she had before, and retreated to a life of solitude. She'd also started using an appetite suppressant, which is illegal today because it's highly addictive. And on the 19th of October 1942, she was pulled over by a police officer in Santa Monica for having her car's bright headlights on in a wartime dim-out zone. She was charged with driving while intoxicated, driving without a license, and failure to obey dim-out restrictions. She had to pay a fine of $250,000 and was handed a suspended jail sentence. But upon arriving home, she found that her family had moved her belongings into a hotel in Hollywood since she could no longer afford to live in the bungalow that she'd been renting. When she assaulted a hairdresser on the set of a low-budget film, she was arrested again. She was sentenced to 180 days in jail and had to be removed from the courtroom after assaulting 2 police officers. While she was being carried out, she was heard yelling, "Have you ever had a broken heart?" She was assessed by a psychiatrist who ordered her transfer to Los Angeles General Hospital's psychiatric ward, and she was taken to the La Crescenta Sanatorium. She was diagnosed with schizophrenia, paranoia and manic depression, and would remain there for 7 years. She underwent insulin shock therapy, which took a serious toll on her, and her mother arranged for her release, but Frances was understandably never the same again. Her mother had her declared insane, and after being committed again, she underwent more shock therapy. She was released and committed again later on, and lived through the worst time in her life. She attempted a comeback years later, but was unsuccessful. The episode of This Is Your Life shows Frances after she'd suffered through this ordeal, and by her demeanor, it's clear she never fully recovered, and she seems demure and shy, a far cry from the starlet who once lit up Hollywood billboards with her remarkable performances. Number 2. In this video that was uploaded to YouTube in 2021, the artist Bob Kane is seen visiting the set of the 1989 film Batman, which is hardly surprising since he's credited with creating the famous superhero. It all started after the creation of Superman in 1938. When that character proved to be a massive success, DC Comics was looking for the next big superhero, and Kane was invited to meet with director Vince Sullivan to discuss the available options. Kane invited a friend of his, Bill Finger, to attend the meeting, and they worked on a few ideas together. When the first Batman comics were printed, though, Finger's name was nowhere to be seen in the written credits, despite his scripts being used. He was not even asked to contribute to the artwork, as Kane decided to use uncredited artists instead. In 1946, Kane declared that he was the sole creator of Batman, and he entered into a deal with DC Comics. The Batman TV series launched in 1966, and while Finger worked on one episode, Kane became a very wealthy man, while his friend received very little compensation. But Batman fans would soon learn the truth of the matter when Finger appeared at a comic book convention in New York, and when a comic book historian called Jerry Bales wrote an article entitled "If the Truth Be Known," or "A Finger in Every Plot." But Kane fired back by contacting a fan magazine, stating, "I, Bob Kane, am the sole creator of Batman." It should be noted that Finger never made much of a fuss about the matter, and he passed away in 1974, still uncredited for his part of the creation. Kane would claim in his autobiography that he'd used 3 sources as inspiration in his creation of Batman. These were a Leonardo da Vinci sketch of a flying machine, the film The Mark of Zorro, and the 1930 film The Bat Whispers. Today, most comic book aficionados credit Finger as the true creator of Batman, as they feel Kane merely used the ideas of others to further Finger's vision, and then claimed it to be his own. DC has also since credited Finger as the character's co-creator since 2015. Number 1. Bruce Jenner, the former Olympian, who's now known as Caitlyn Jenner, was known for his role on the hit reality TV show Keeping Up with the Kardashians, which ran for a total of 20 seasons starting in 2007. As a boy, Bruce enjoyed many different sports, such as football, water skiing, basketball, and track events. He attended Graceland College in Iowa, where he played football, but he abandoned that sport due to a knee injury. He then started competing in decathlons, and in 1972 was named as a member of the Olympic team that was set to compete in Munich. He finished 10th overall, but started training even harder for the next Olympics, and by 1976 he was regarded as one of the US's best athletes. He'd already broken the decathlon world record, and at the Olympics that were held in Montreal that year, he set personal records in the 100-meter dash, long jump, 400-meter dash, high jump, and shot put events. During the decathlon event, he set yet another world record, and after his triumphant return home, he decided to retire. He would later state that this was the plan all along, and that if he hadn't succeeded at the Olympics, he would have stopped competing regardless. He then became a television commentator, and years later, in 1991, married Kristen Houghton, better known as Kris Jenner, the mother of the Kardashians. He then only became more famous while appearing on the family's reality TV show. But in 2015, he shocked the world by announcing that he now identified as a woman, and that he'd be changing his name to Caitlyn following a series of transitioning surgeries. She left the show in 2017. Before this, Jenner appeared on the show The Balancing Act, during which she spoke about her Olympic success and her role in the Kardashian family. She also discussed the techniques she used to remain calm during times of chaos and to keep mentally fit. Shortly after this interview, though, tragedy struck while Jenner was driving her black Cadillac on the Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu. She was traveling northbound while towing a four-wheel off-road vehicle when the car in front of hers, a Lexus sedan, struck a Toyota Prius from behind. Jenner was unable to stop in time and rear-ended the Lexus, causing it to travel into oncoming traffic where it was struck by another vehicle. The woman who was driving the Lexus passed away at the scene, and a further 7 people had to be hospitalized. The resulting investigation found no alcohol in Jenner's system, and she cooperated with the police. Her cell phone was seized and examined to determine whether she was using it when the accident occurred, and it was revealed that she wasn't. While it was determined that the accident was just that, an accident, the deceased driver's stepchildren filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Jenner, as they felt the reality TV star was to blame after all. They claimed she'd been driving recklessly, and that they needed to be compensated for the tragic loss they'd gone through. Jenner's lawyers fired back and denied these claims, adding that the two claimants, who were aged 57 and 60 respectively, were not financially dependent on their stepmother. In 2018, Caitlyn decided to settle the matter outside of court and paid a total of $800,000 in compensation, though most people believe she was in no way responsible for the accident, and she was cleared of any criminal wrongdoing. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.